All right. We're going to try to get this meeting started. Um, This is the Commission on Chicago Landmarks regular meeting. Today's date is, what day is today? It's July 11th already. I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Burns, Commissioner Fair, Commissioner Hughes, Commissioner Ponce, Commissioner Rubin, Tolliver, and Jackowitz will not be attending, and we're going to wait for Commissioner Boatwright. She is present. Thank you. I would like to ask anyone wishing to make a statement on today's agenda to complete a public comment card and give the card to a member of the staff. Comment cards are available at the door. As a courtesy to other individuals wishing to offer comments, we ask that members of the general public limit your statements to 3 minutes or less. When the time comes for public comment on the individual item on the agenda, I'll call names from the cards and ask you to come forward to the microphone to make your statement. Please state your name and the interest, organization, or company you represent, if any. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of June 6th, 2024. Those were included in your packet. Is there any comments or questions regarding those minutes? If not, I'd like to request a motion to approve those minutes. Is there so moved by Commissioner Fair? Second, Commissioner Hughes. All in favor? Anybody opposed? The motion carries. Second item on the agenda is the final landmark recommendation for the Mars Candy Factory located at 2019 North Oak Park Avenue. This is in the 29th Ward, and Dan Kleiber, it's all yours.
Good afternoon. Just before I get started, I just wanted to say that this is Candlin Hahn's presentation from DPD Historic Preservation. I am simply filling in for Candlin, who unexpectedly couldn't be here. So it's very thorough. Construction on the Mars Candy Factory building at 2019 North Oak Park Avenue began in 1928, and in 1929, it opened as the headquarters and sole manufacturing facility of fledgling candy company Mars Inc. The location has been a stalwart in the impressive history of candy making in Chicago, operating continuously for almost a century. At its October 2023 meeting, the Commission approved a preliminary landmark recommendation for the Mars Candy Factory, and later this year, operations will cease at this location. The factory is located on the city's west side in the Austin community. It sits at the northeast corner of Oak Park and Armitage Avenues, immediately south of the Metro Milwaukee District West line. The Mars site, shown in light blue, is approximately 20 acres in size. The factory building is shown in green. In October, the Commission found that the Mars Candy Factory site meets 4 criteria for Chicago landmark designation, including criterion 1 for heritage. At the center of the nation's railroad network and agricultural heartland, Chicago was the perfect location for a candy manufacturer. Freight moving across the country was, and still is, funneled through the railroad yards of Chicago, where it is transferred to other lines headed across the country. The closer a candy maker was to the hub of this network, the fresher the raw supplies were going to be, and the quicker products got to their destination. This speed was important for candy, which required quick turnover to remain fresh. Mars constructed their new factory next to the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul railroad tracks, now Metro tracks, so train cars could be diverted via spurs directly to and from the site. The same railroad offered passenger service, and a Mars station was established after the factory's construction, making it easier for workers to get to and from the site. The new railroad stop also gave the community a convenient transportation option, making it a more desirable location. At the same time the candy factory was built, only scattered parcels of the land surrounding it had been developed. To integrate with anticipated residential development, the factory was modest in height, 1 story with a central 2-story office tower. The building was set back and featured a manicured front lawn that stretched along its entire Oak Park Avenue facade. The product was a building that looked more like a picturesque country club than a manufacturing facility, and the factory became an asset to the neighborhood where many of the company's workers chose to live. Construction of the new building marked Mars Inc.'s move from Minneapolis to Chicago. The building was both the headquarters and the main production facility for Mars Inc. for decades to come. The Chicago factory produced some of the nation's most popular confections, starting with the Milky Way. The Snickers and the Three Musketeers bars were invented and first produced at the Chicago site. In turn, images of the factory adorned Mars's packaging, and the building became a visual symbol for Mars products across the nation. Mars was just one of many candy makers based in Chicago, and by the turn of the 20th century, the city was known as the candy capital of the world. At one time, Chicago was home to over 1,000 candy purveyors, in addition to associations and publications related to the candy industry. At the peak of Chicago's candy industry, during the mid-20th century, the city produced about a third of all candy manufactured in the country and employed close to 25,000 Chicagoans. Based out of the factory on Oak Park Avenue, Mars has been one of the most successful confectionery businesses in Chicago and therefore a major contributor to the city's candy manufacturing legacy. At its busiest, the facility housed 10 production lines and employed 2,500 people. It is one of the last surviving large-scale candy manufacturing facilities in Chicago. The commission also believed that the Mars Candy Factory site meets criterion 3 for its association with significant people. In 1911, Frank C. Mars founded the company that would become Mars Inc. The Chicago Mars factory is a result of his desire to build the most beautiful candy factory in America. Having chosen a former golf course in a relatively undeveloped area, Frank Mars strategically started with a scenic location where the factory would have the largest presence and where he believed it would have a positive influence on future development. He also reasoned that if living conditions around a plant were better than those around a typical plant, a better caliber of employee would want to work there. Frank's son, Forrest Mars Sr., had worked with his father at the Chicago factory in the early 1930s and had helped to create the Snickers and Three Musketeers candy bars there. After striking out on his own, he started his own successful candy company in England and matched that success in the United States by creating and manufacturing M&Ms. When he took over leadership of Mars Inc. in 1964, he immediately set out to reshape the Chicago factory's spaces to reflect the values by which he intended to run the company. He removed exclusive executive spaces and their high-end decor. Executive offices were eliminated and desks were arranged in a wagon wheel fashion with the higher-ranking executives in the center. These changes were physical, but reflected the new culture he was instilling into the company, a radically egalitarian system in which workers were called associates and received a larger share of the company's financial success. At the same time, Forrest Mars Sr. installed new machines and technology to keep the factory cleaner and more efficient, goals that were a must for the new owner. The commission also found that the Mars Candy Factory site meets criterion 4 for exemplary architecture. The Spanish Revival style was a popular residential style in the 1920s, most commonly seen in warmer climates, but it was so prevalent that examples can be found across the United States, including Chicago. However, its use in an industrial design like the Mars Candy Factory made the plant quite distinctive. The Spanish Revival style is reflected in the factory's low-pitched clay tile roof with minimal overhang, the compound hipped and gabled roofs of varying heights, and its arched windows and door openings. Tower shapes are also a common feature of the style. The Mars Candy Factory's focal point is a central tower with a pyramid roof. At the northwest corner, another tower stands sentry as a brick post for the gate, and another rises above the roof line in the north wing. In certain variations of Spanish Revival buildings, decoration is concentrated at the doorways, windows, and cornice. At the Mars Candy Factory, the most elaborate portion of the Oak Park facade is the two-story central section. There, an arched central doorway is set into a highly decorative recessed arch. Above it, the cornice has a Gothic arcade pattern. At each side bay of the central block, the sides of the second floor are accented by curving profiles and the tapered shapes under the second floor balconies are an unusual feature seen in some Spanish Revival structures. Other decorative Spanish Revival touches can be found throughout the exterior, as in the fancy ironwork of the 1939 gate at the upper left and the window grille lower left. Decorative vents are formed from barrel tiles in a gable end, the upper right, and in panels at the side of the main door, also topped by a vent-like geometric grille, lower right. Looking back on the occasion of the factory's 25th anniversary in 1953, the Chicago Tribune declared that the high standards the Mars Candy Factory set for architecture and landscaping became the benchmark for every confectionery plant built in cities across the United States after 1929 and influenced facility design in other industries. The article also noted that when people saw the plant, home building began in earnest, and every vacant lot within a mile of the plant was improved with good homes. The commission also preliminarily found that the Mars Candy Factory meets Criterion 5 as the work of nationally significant designers. At left is the central section of the original factory built by the Austin Company in 1928 to 29. At right, the two-story wing is the 1960 addition by C.F. Murphy. Here is another view looking north at the same portions of the building. Founded in Cleveland, Ohio in 1878, the Austin Company is globally recognized as an innovator in industrial facility design and construction. They were one of the earliest companies to offer the full suite of design, engineering, and construction services to clients, allowing one entity to handle a project from design phase through closeout to help keep costs down. The company patented its all-inclusive service package as the Austin Method. It reduced construction time and costs through industrial building design standardization and offering in-house delivery and construction of all components. Innovations by the Austin Company, like design standardization, in-house production, and on-hand supplies of standard interchangeable building components, allowed them to construct massive buildings in record time, so they became in high demand when the U.S. entered World War I. By the 1930s, new products from the company's insulated steel division allowed Austin to design the first ever prefabricated porcelain enamel gas station. It soon became ubiquitous when adopted by multiple major oil companies. During that decade, the Austin Company also developed the first windowless, completely controlled conditions factory in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, controlling light, temperature, humidity, noise, and operating conditions for maximum efficiency. The Austin Company adopted its key features as their new standard for factory and warehouse structures, and its windowless design with clear spans was ideal for World War II production. In 1960, C.F. Murphy and his firm of C.F. Murphy Associates designed an office addition to the Mars Candy Factory at the southwest corner of the building. Murphy was one of Chicago's most prominent mid-20th century architects, whose designs are indicative of the Second Chicago School, with origins that can be traced to Ludwig Mies van der Rohe's search for a modern style of architecture that replaced historical styles with functionality. In this 1958 aerial photo looking toward the northeast, you can see the vacant southwest corner of the site where the 1960 addition was to be located, dashed red box. Under C.F. Murphy, countless high-profile commissions were completed in the city, including the Prudential Building, 1955, O'Hare International Airport, 1963, and the Daly Center, 1965. In addition to the criteria just discussed, the commission found that the Mars Candy Factory also meets the separate integrity criterion. The 1928 to 29 Mars Candy Factory, with its 1960 addition, retains its historic location, setting, exterior design, materials, and workmanship. Although the factory has had dozens of additions over the years, they have been constructed on the rear of the building and therefore have not impacted significant historical and architectural features. Alterations to the building include the replacement of original windows and doors, and the replacement of clay roof tiles with matching synthetic tiles. Window and door replacement are considered reversible, and because the roofing tiles were replaced with similar style of tiles, neither significantly impacts the character of the structure. The commission preliminarily recommended that the significant historical and architectural features of the Mars Candy Factory site are all exterior elevations, including roof lines of the Mars Candy Factory building, from the west elevation to a depth of the first 7 bays along the north elevation, approximately 133 feet, for the entire length of the building from the north elevation to the south or Armitage elevation, and the iron gate and brick posts at the northwest corner of the building. For purposes of permit review for demolition of non-significant portions of the building, the commission will require that a new masonry east wall with finished corners be constructed to enclose and make weathertight the significant portion of the building. The loading dock at the south elevation is not considered significant and may be modified. Here are photographs showing the extent of those significant features. The top photo is looking eastward at the site. The dashed red line signifies the extent of the significant features. At bottom left is the north elevation along with the gate with brick posts included in the significant features. At bottom right is the south elevation. For context, the significant features cover 1.8 acres of the 20.89 acre site, or just approximately 9% of the total area. Staff briefed Alderman Taliaferro regarding the landmark designation, and he is aware of it. Representatives of the Mars Corporation are also here today to answer any questions that you may have. You have a final landmark recommendation to this effect now, and that is the end of Handelin's presentation.
Thank you, Dan. Does the commission have any questions for Dan? Having none, we'll go to comments from the public. Mr. Miller?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ward Miller. I'm the Richard H. Driehaus Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. We've been working towards this day for several years, along with the community, the Galewood Neighbors Association, Mars Candy Company, and part of all the LISC hearings with community about landmarking this building and the significance of this site to the Galewood and Austin communities. And this is really a wonderful combination of all sorts of people, groups, and corporations coming together to honor this great history, to landmark this building, and we're very proud to support this designation. And I just want to say thank you to Tom here and Bill, who have worked with us with Galewood Neighbors over time, along with Mars staff, senior staff that has always been very supportive of these ideas. This is an exciting development and some proposals that are going to happen behind this site on the other remaining 9 acres, but it's wonderful to sort of set a high bar standard with a landmark designation of such an important building and such an important industry to Chicago that really has withered so much in time. This is also a community that doesn't have a lot of designated Chicago landmarks, so it's really great to see this occur. And of course, we lost the Brock's Candy Factory about 15 years ago, so it's really wonderful to see Mars Corporation step up to the plate along with all of us together and see this day through with the landmark designation of this really special project and this incredible building. Thank you.
Thank you, Ward. Actually, I did forget, because the representatives are here. Would you like to make a statement? Please.
Turn this on. There we go. I'm John Benazzi. I'm head of global real estate for Mars. Thank you for having us, and compliments to Handelin and the staff for that really terrific report. We're sitting here, really impressed and learning things about Mars, also learning things about the history of the building. So it's really great. I think just on behalf of Mars, we fully support this designation. That's what we came here to say. Like Ward mentioned, we've been working with the community on this for at least a year and a half. Our idea has been, we want to understand from the community, of which we've been a part for 100 years. We want to hear from them as to what they would want the future use of this site to be. And we've had those conversations, and that's what we're working on. The benefit, I mean, the upshot of all of that has been that, from the community perspective, from Mars's perspective, and even from the developer perspectives, we're not a developer, and so we've been working with the development community to identify someone who can help us steward this property into next best use. Everybody has supported this idea of designation of this site. I mean, everybody wants to see this building preserved, and Mars no less than anybody else. So thank you again.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for the applicant? Anybody? Okay, if none, I would like to request a motion to adopt the final landmark recommendation to City Council for the Mars Candy Factory at 2019 North Oak Park Avenue. Is there a motion? So moved by Commissioner Boatright. Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Ponce. I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Burns, Commissioner Fair. And I am a yes as well. The motion carries unanimously. Oh, Commissioner Hughes, I'm sorry. And she is a yes still also. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda is a building catalog for the Old Town Triangle District. This is in wards 2 and 43. And Matt, I think this is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Wong and Commissioners. Good afternoon. Today, for your consideration, is a building catalog that we have worked with volunteers from the Old Town Triangle Association to produce to modernize the landmark designation information that we have for the Old Town Triangle District. Again, the association was extremely helpful in volunteering their time to help us with this, especially Diane Gonzalez, Karen Fendler, and Sachi Kubo, to name just a few. So this is how the landmark designation reports used to look in the 70s. This is the report for Old Town. It was designated in 1977. In the decades since that time, of course, our landmark designation reports have grown more complex with more information and hopefully more use to property owners and the commission. And one of the pieces of information that we now include in our landmark district reports is a building catalog. Old Town didn't have one. There was a specific reason we undertook this project. In 1977, as I said, Old Town became a local City of Chicago landmark district. That boundary is in red on this map. And then in 1984, the community of Old Town took it upon themselves to also list the building on the National Register of Historic Places. And that's a mostly honorary program administered by the National Park Service. And that boundary is in blue. Both types of districts have a determination of whether a building in the district is contributing to it or not. So fast forward to 2020, while reviewing a project involving a partial demolition to a building that stands in both districts, there was confusion regarding the distinction between contributing determinations made by this commission and those made by the National Register. So to address that uncertainty, we partnered with the Old Town Triangle Association to create a building catalog for the district. We've been working with volunteers of that group, and they provided incredible documentation in terms of photographs and other information, archival information that helped us shape the document before you today. A building catalog is pretty simple. It's the address of the building in question. There is the date of construction or major alterations, an architect if it's known, original owner if we know, And then the last column is the most important one. That is whether the building is contributing or non-contributing to the district. And all of those determinations that go into a catalog are completely preliminary staff determinations. They are not binding on the commission. And any final determination of whether a building is contributing or not is made by this commission uh, uh, at time of a permit review application. In terms, obviously, one of the defining features of any landmark district is its age. And for districts, we typically establish a period of significance that defines what are the important buildings in the district. And this commission, as part of a separate permit review, has determined that the period of significance for Old Town is from the time of the Great Fire in 1871 to 1929, with the start of the Great Depression, which really imposed a hiatus on building construction that continued throughout the 30s, into the 40s with World War II, and even into the 50s with the material shortages after the war. Despite this being a preliminary document, non-binding on the commission, it's a very useful tool for property owners, buyers of property in the district to understand if their building would be subject to restrictions requiring that the historic features be maintained, or if the building could possibly be demolished. If you guys vote to adopt this catalog, it will serve as a supplemental information for the district's designation report. I wanted to note that neither the designation ordinance for the district will be modified by this. It is an addendum, it's informational. It does not need to go to city council. We will, if you adopt it, however, attach this to the designation report and post it on our website, and it certainly would promulgate it within the Old Town Triangle community. You may ask, well, how do we know if a building is contributing or not in a landmark district? Fortunately, your rules and regulations provide these 6 criteria for making that determination. Number 1 and 2 relate to evaluating a building's historic architecture and character and its history. So that points to age and obviously the architectural condition of the building. Number 3 evaluates the building's siting on a lot. A building's size, shape, and scale are considered in number 4. Number 5 focuses on a building's material quality. And finally, number 6 considers how much the building has been altered since its date of construction. So those are the 6 tools that we use to evaluate, to make that preliminary determination in our building catalog, whether a building is contributing or not. The data in the Old Town catalog reveal that 89% of the structures appear to be contributing to us. Alterations to contributing buildings must follow the commission standards, and those buildings, of course, cannot be demolished. The remaining 48 or so non-contributing buildings can be altered more freely, but they are still subject to review by this commission, much like new construction in landmark districts. Non-contributing buildings can be demolished, also subject to review by this commission and city council. So in broad brushstrokes, we just wanted to give you a look at some of these non-contributing buildings. Obviously, when you look at end of period of significance in 1929 and things finally beginning to pick up in the 60s and late 50s, so much has changed in American life and in building materials and architecture that it's pretty easy to see the difference. Obviously, most of these buildings, having been built after 1929, reflect the idea that we've talked about before about Old Town in the 60s, 70s, being a really desirable place to live for the creative class. And many architects of the modern era built homes for clients and for themselves in Old Town. Here are some larger non-contributing developments that came to Old Town after 1929. It's interesting where, you see just outside of Old Town, those urban renewal towers. None of that happened within the district. These are non-contributing, but of scale, I would say. Obviously, these are non-contributing as well. These kind of examples reflect siting and materials that are not compatible with the district. Some more examples. And as we've seen, some of these buildings, just because they're non-contributing to a 19th century district, doesn't mean they're not worthy of landmark consideration or preservation. Take 312 West Willow at lower left. That's Harry Weiss design. Certainly meets criteria for individual landmark designation. 310 West Willow, a design by Bruce Graham of SOM. Very important figures in architecture, nationally significant figures in architecture in America. Those buildings are worthy of consideration. And we've done two of these. These two at lower part of the slide, 1700 North Hudson. That's the Clark Netsch House. We recently designated that building. So too did we do 235 West Eugenie, a Ben Weiss design that we recently designated. So that's all I have to say in my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Does the commission have any questions? Yeah,
Talk a little bit more about, oh, thank you. Could you talk a little bit more about what the engagement was like with the Old Town Triangle Association? Was it specifically with that group, or, you know, were other parties, the two wards involved at all?
We have reached out to the wards. I believe we have a representative from Alderman Hopkins' ward here today. We have reached out, obviously, to the Old Town Triangle Association, but in that outreach, we've said, please let anyone know in the community about this work. And I think they've done that.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes. My question is more so for the, I'm assuming that this is a living document. The houses that were shown, or the properties that were shown, that's not considered contributing at the moment. Is there a chance later on that there will be a process to add some of them when the time comes, or how does that work?
Well, we've done two. I think there are others that merit landmark designation in their own right. I think there's about 10. Now, over time, any of our landmark districts, they're permanent, right? But there's going to be a point in time where we're going to have to look at changes that have occurred in landmark districts to consider all of that recent infill and if it merits inclusion. I'm not sure we're there yet with Old Town, but I think there's about 10 buildings that are non-contributing in Old Town that merit individual landmark designation.
Thank you. So is that the process we would take, like right now today, for instance, is them getting individual as opposed to joining the district?
That's right. That's right.
But then they do enter into the catalog once that they're,
In the catalog
Designated.
before you, we have two examples that we say, while it's non-contributing, it's
Right.
also a Chicago
Yeah.
landmark on its own.
okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Ponce.
Mine is more of a comment, just to congratulate on making this happen. It's a wonderful catalog and a record of what is out there and what you're discovering in the process.
Commissioner Burns.
Just for clarification, to build up Commissioner Hughes's point, can you confirm that a building can be determined as non-contributing to the district, but still eligible for landmark designation in the future based on its own individual merit versus how it aligns with
Yes, if
the
it meets,
district criteria?
if it meets criteria on its own, yes, indeed.
Okay, so it's just maybe like a clarifying point. the catalog is in no way restrictive of future buildings being deemed as worthy of landmark
That's right.
status. Yeah, it's
That's
completely
right.
supplemental. Okay,
That's right.
great.
So yeah, just again, the two at lower left, those are the ones that this commission and city council have recently moved forward on.
Great. uh, You did say well, there is somebody from Alderman Hopkins' office.
That's right.
Would you like to make a statement, sir?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm just here, Brian Pellrine for the record, Staff Assistant to Alderman Hopkins, here to express his support for this effort and his appreciation to Historic Preservation staff for their work to clarify contributing versus non-contributing and to provide this informational pamphlet for any individuals looking to do real estate transactions or renovations in the future in the Old Town District. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody from Alderman Edson's office? Also, if there's anybody from the Old Town Triangle who would, Community Association, would like to make a comment, if you could go to the mic, please.
Thank you. I'm Beth Burke. I'm a board member of the Old Town Triangle Association, and I also chair the Historic District Committee. And I too very much approve of this building catalog. We've had a lot of engagement with the staff over the years to create the details that went into the catalog. And I just want to commend them for the partnership and this really useful catalog that's the result. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to public comments now. Mr. Miller?
Yes, hello, Ward Miller, the Richard H. Treehouse Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. Address you again on support of this building catalog. This really is an important document, and our hats off to the Old Town Triangle Association, Diane Gonzalez, who's also a member of our Board of Preservation Chicago and a longtime resident of the Old Town Triangle Association, numerous individuals, and even honoring the late Terry Tatum, that worked on this report with city staff as well. A lot of that information was gathered by Terry and members of the community, so we're grateful for this. This really does recognize these buildings that sort of fall outside the boundary, if you will, of that period of significance, and it includes buildings by, Harry Weiss, as was noted, Edgar Miller's studios, those incredible Glassner studio buildings are really not included, or it's right at the threshold of what would be included and not. Buildings by Bruce Graham, Ben Weiss, and the list goes on. Bruce Graham, obviously the architect at Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, who gave us the Sears Tower. So here's a building by him that's not protected in this district. And when this district occurred in the early 70s, let's say, or mid 70s, the threats were not so prevalent. And now, we're facing a lot of these buildings coming down. There have been about 5 sort of that fit into this range that have been lost over time, the last 5, 6, 7 years. And we really think this is a step towards protecting those incredible buildings that are part of one of Chicago's most dynamic and desirable neighborhoods. And within a Chicago landmark district. And when I was growing up, if anything within the district was protected, at least that's what we thought. And we look at the period of significance sort of in a different way now to determine which buildings stay and which ones go. But I think this document will help ease that tension and encourage more preservation. And we look forward to a lot of these buildings being designated landmarks, just as the Netsch House was. And the Netsch House would have fallen outside of this district until this building catalog came along. So these are really important steps forward, and we just want to commend the staff, this commission, and the Old Town Triangle Association, Alderman Hopkins and the neighboring aldermen in coming together to support this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Gonzalez?
Good afternoon, commissioners and everyone in the audience. I'm one of the 8 that slogged around and did the footwork for this. And I want to thank not only our committee and the neighbors who I think we're on every security camera in every alley in Old Town at this point. So we went up and down. But I do want to also thank the staff at the commission because we were just kind of sending you things and you were guiding us all along the way, particularly Candlin and Matt. So much we could not have done this without you. And I think it's remarkable. I'm left from the 70s when we got the first designation. I came in at the end of that. And it's just sort of a continuation of that. So we appreciate all you as much as you appreciate us. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Gonzalez, if you could remember to fill out a comment card for the record.
I didn't do that. I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak from the public? Go ahead, Commissioner Hughes.
This is just one more piece of clarification. I cannot remember the case to save my life, but I do recall previously with creating districts, we are, clumping residences together, or at least we were in the process of trying to clump residences together to do public realm improvements through Adopt a Landmark. If that is the case, if you have a series of properties that are, considered a part of the district, and then one that's an individual or a couple that follows that's individuals, do they still get to take advantage of the resources that the district homes would?
Yes, a contributing building in a landmark district versus an individual landmark, they have the same obligations and the same benefits. There's really no difference.
Well, previously, we have not allowed individual residences to qualify for anything for Adopt a Landmark, for instance. That's why I'm asking the question.
I'll defer to Deanna on that question.
Okay.
So Commissioner, yes, we do have certain parameters that are established as priorities that the department put together for how to evaluate applications for Adopt a Landmark and how to, distribute resources. So as you know, the last application round included 13 projects, and those tended to be larger developments, larger, more commercial properties, not single-family homes. So you are correct in that instance. It's not really a matter of whether it's a contributing building or an individual landmark. It was more of the how it fit the criteria that were established for priorities to allocate resources. And each application round in the future, those things could also change. So this is not it's just basically the way the program is designed to allow evolvement of how we establish priorities.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, I'd like to request a motion to adopt the building catalog for the Old Town Triangle District. Is there a motion? So moved, Commissioner Fair. Second, Commissioner Boatright. Do the roll call. Commissioner Burns, Commissioner Hughes, Commissioner Ponce. And I am a yes as well. The motion carries. Congratulations. It's a great piece of work. Next item on the agenda is the citywide Adopt a Landmark Fund, informational only for a completed project. This is for the Onleong Merchants Association building in the 25th, 11th Ward. Thank you. I was about to say, wait a minute.
It's now
Located at 2216 South Wentworth Avenue. And that's Alderman Lee. And who's taking this? Dan? Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I am here today with an informational overview of a completed Adopt a Landmark project from the 2019 funding round. The Poitec Center, along with the Chinese Christian Union Church, the owner of the Onleong Merchants Association building at 2216 South Wentworth, have completed their Adopt a Landmark project. The city provided $250,000 in Adopt a Landmark funds for the project, which totaled approximately $950,000 in the end. In addition to Poitec Center's and the church's own funds, the project was also the recipient of a $250,000 grant from the state of Illinois. For orientation, the An Leong Merchants Association building is located at 2216 South Wentworth within the Armour Square community area and the 11th Ward in the heart of Chinatown. The building was completed in 1926 and built to accommodate multiple uses. It is considered the oldest and most prominent physical symbol of Chicago's Chinese heritage and is clad in a variety of colorful terracotta elements. It was designated a Chicago landmark in 1993. Based on an assessment completed by Wiss-Janney Elsner in 2019, the Adopt a Landmark scope of work for the project included two main exterior envelope components: terracotta and other masonry, as well as canopy restoration work. The slide before you shows a representative sample of the conditions of the terracotta and masonry units that were addressed, including cracked terracotta, deteriorating mortar joints, and spalling. The work was completed on all primary elevations, including the east, south, and a small portion of the north. The color-coded elevation at the lower right shows which specific terracotta units were either completely replaced, reset, patched, or otherwise repaired on the south side of the building. And for a sample, here is a before and after of the southeast corner facade and the masonry work completed here. You can see the broken, cracked, etc. terracotta pieces in the middle image, and at the right is the same section finished. You do have to stare at it, but you can see them. Here on the left side of the slide are further examples of the second floor window head on that same southeast corner side. And at right is an example of masonry work on the northeast corner that was completed. In terms of the canopy work, the cast iron east entrance canopy was initially dismantled and then it was cleaned, repaired as needed, rehung with stainless steel anchorages, as well as given a complete roof replacement. These photos show some before conditions of the canopy. Here are some in-progress photos of the canopy work. It should be noted that the canopy itself was rebuilt along with new steel beams attached to the building, and then the cast iron cladding was reattached. There's also a concrete pad inside that framing that was able to be reused as well. As you can see, there was a significant amount of work that went into the restoration of this particular feature itself. And here is the finished east entrance canopy, including the rebuilt roof inside of it with updated drainage system too. Again, the Adopt a Landmark grant was for $250,000, and in the end, the total project costs were about $950,000. Woolley and Andrews was the primary contractor on the project, and Charlie Pipel served as the third-party inspecting architect. And with us today are David Wu from Poitec Center, along with Nathan Harris from WJE. And collectively, we should be able to answer any questions that you may have about the project or the grant agreement process. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Does the commission have any questions for Dan at this time? If not, David, would you like to make a statement?
Sure. Yeah, I'm here representing the owner, Chinese Christian Union Church, as well as Poitec Center, which is a community center started by the church. You know, we understand that we're stewards of a very, very important building in Chinatown. Chinatown was the first Chinatown in Chicago was at Clark and Van Buren, and Chinatown moved to Cermak and Wentworth in 1912. This building was finished in 1928, I believe, and is probably the only landmark building representing either a Chinese or Asian American building in Chicago. So it's very important. You know, generally the church and our community center doesn't have very many funds. We set aside about $100,000 a year so that every 5-10 years we could do a big project like this. And so adoptive landmark funds is very, very important. About 2 years ago, the National Trust for Historic Preservation started a new initiative trying to preserve Chinatowns. Chinatowns are being threatened in Philadelphia. The Chinatown basically is gone in Washington, D.C. It's under threatened in Seattle and Boston. Chicago's Chinatown is the only one that says we're flourishing, mainly because we moved away from our downtown location to our current location. The importance of Chinatown, not only to Chicago, but Illinois, was highlighted because the state of Illinois designated Chinatown as one of its inaugural cultural districts earlier this spring, which will provide more resources to support the cultural and historic and economic development of our community. You know, there is some amazing work that was done through this project, but you know, we haven't had a scaffold on our building in 20 years, and so Nathan has found another $2 million worth of work to do. So we're hoping to get some federal funding to complement state and city funding, but hopefully we'll have a chance to apply again. But it's been very helpful for our project to receive the city funding.
Thank you, David. Nathan, did you want to say anything?
Sure. Yeah,
Or-
I guess, Nathan Harris, Swiss Janie Elstner. We were very honored to have the opportunity to work on this project. I think wanted to thank David and the center, the church and landmarks for helping make this happen. I think our goal was to try to preserve as much of the building as possible. So throughout the process, finding some significantly damaged structural elements, but having the opportunity to salvage and reinstall a lot of the original material was very, very exciting. And I think overall the ultimate goal was accomplished. And I think we're all very happy with the result. Thank you all.
Thank you. Commissioner, have any questions for the applicant? I did have one real quick question. Any interior work that was done under this?
Yeah, there was no interior work done.
Okay.
Yeah.
But some of those items on the interior are pretty significant as
Yeah.
well.
But we're going to celebrate the centennial of the building in 2028. So we're hoping at least maybe one more project before then to get the building really into great condition.
Hey, let's get it going. All right. That was, this was informational only. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the Permit Review Committee reports for June 14th. And Deanna.
Thank you, Commissioner. The Permit Review Committee reviewed 7 projects at its meeting on June 14. 6 projects were approved with conditions, and 1 project was approved as submitted. The report summarizing the scope of the proposed projects and the committee's decisions was included in your packets. This report is for your information and for the record.
Thank you, Deanna. Emily?
For the month of June, staff approved 142 permit applications. A total of 158 reviews were performed by staff, and the average number of days to issue approval or correction was 5.6 days.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for Deanna or Emily? If none, there being no further business, I'd like to request a motion to adjourn this meeting. Is there a motion? So move, Commissioner Hughes and Commissioner Burns, and second by Commissioner Hughes. All in favor, say aye. And anybody opposed? And the Permit Review Committee will begin 1:45. Sounds good. All right. Thank you.